I'd like to do it just walking around. It's more fun. More easy. Can you guys hear me in the back? Right, just away with the mic. Yeah, raise your hand. Can you hear me in the back? Yes. So, my name is Goldberg. I'm here from Internet Marketing Ninjas. They've been around for about 15 years. They have 100 employees. Recommendations from our wall, SEO book, Transscription, SEO mods. So obviously they know what they're doing. We need to recover from penalty, need more sales, get in touch. Now I want to talk to you about doing crowdsourcing
for your marketing, so that you yourself aren't doing all the laborious, tedious stuff, but getting other people to do it for you for much less than what you yourself would charge, let's say at your hourly rate, or what your staff would cost. Yeah, okay, thanks. So just a quick request, if you can, I'd love feedback after this. Anything I could do better, anything you liked, that'd be great. Okay, next slide. So, I'm going to talk about doing this especially with Amazon Mechanical Turk. For those of you who don't know, it's basically just outsourcing different tasks to the crowd. So people around the world, in the US in particular, you can do it, and it's got about 500,000 or more people. And academics have checked it against US Census data, and it's representative, which is fantastic. You can really slice and dice your data and get all sorts of segments, right? So if you're selling prams, right, to move babies around with, you can just get mothers of children under the age of 3, for example. Obviously, you're going to be able to do better market research that way than if you're just speaking to a general sample of the US population. But initially, they only give you country and proficiency, right, to select who you want to do your task. So basically, you can get people in the US who are not incompetent. So fantastic, we've gone from like this much people, this much people. That doesn't really help you so much. So how do you narrow it down a bit more? So how do you pick the right Turkers, right? People on Mechanical Turk who do the work are called Turkers. How do you get the right Turkers to do your job? So I'm going to give you some advanced tips. So the first one, whoever's read Predictably Rational by Dan Ariely knows that you can tell people, I'm trusting you on the honor system, that if you do this task, you actually fit the following criteria. And even if they have an incentive to cheat, right? For example, money, because here you're paying people to do this work, telling them they're on their system, they won't cheat. And I've done this, and it works. Okay, first tip. So for example, you can say, if you are a mother over the age of 30 and you have children, then you're eligible to do this task. And I'm trusting you on the honor system that you won't do it unless you meet this criteria. Next trick, if you want to exclude people, again, Mechanical Turk doesn't have any built-in tools to do that. So what you can do is you have a little form field, right? And it says, what's Mechanical Turk ID? Right? Proceed. And then when they click proceed, you take them to a little bit of PHP code and it says, okay, let's check this ID against 10 people who did it before, right? Let's say you're doing surveys. So you got 10 people to do it. Then you need another 10 people to do it. Let's say you forgot a question, but you don't want to pay this first 10 people again to give you the exact same answers just plus one more question, right? So what you do is you take those 10 IDs, you check it, right? Because you've got it submitting in the first on the field in the first page, and then you check it, and if it's the same ID, then you're like, sorry Steve, you already did this, or Bokabajan, please proceed. And the third tip is simply that Mechanical Turk does give you something called qualifications. Now, usually the idea of a qualification is somebody is qualified at doing something, right? So, quick tip, anybody who's doing usability testing is paying $40 per tester, let's say, to a usertesting.com, you're paying a lot of money, because you can get people to do it for $5 or $10 a test with Mechanical Turk. And guess what? You can get anybody who wants to do it, because it's representative of the US population. Wow. Now, the qualifications, though, you can also use for demographics. So you can do an initial task on Mechanical Turk, say, okay, tell me about your demographics, I'm going to pay you $1 to do this. You ask about marital status, education, and then you give them a qualification afterwards. Married, single, college-educated, PhD, whatever. And then when you want PhDs to test your math program, or you want married women to check out your site, excellent, you're getting representative testing, you're getting representative data. Next slide, please. Okay, so the first step in any campaign, of course, is research, right? Now, with research, the first thing you want to find out is what's the problem? And we as SEOs tend to really overlook this, unfortunately, because we think of people as keywords, right? You're not Amir, your brand new car, 2014 model, right? Amir's not a brand new car, he's Amir. And so when you're starting your research, you need to start with intent. You don't start with keywords. And research is how you find that out. You start with finding out what the problem is and who's got it, okay? Is it a broken swing or is it a little drop snow cone? Is it a 5-year-old Irish girl? Is it a 3-year-old Hispanic boy? And the biggest thing, if you get nothing from today's panel, from my presentation at all, from the whole conference, please just, I think it's a good idea, just write this one tip down, interview people, and ask them, what's your biggest problem preventing you from achieving your goal? Again, what's your biggest problem preventing you from achieving your goal? When you ask this, it's like magic happens, okay? You get amazing anecdotal data, and you just suddenly have, oh my gosh, I totally see your perspective now, right? And that is so much more beneficial because when you're writing your landing page copy, you're not guessing what headline is going to work better. You've got a good idea, right? But still, you've only got qualitative ideas. So then what you do is you do surveys, right? You take the problems that you identified from the interviews, and you have surveys. So rank problem A, B, and C from 1 to 5, where 1 is it's not a problem, 5 is it's a huge problem, I can't deal with this on my own. And then you just aggregate the data. So the average for problem A is only, 3 out of 5, but the average for problem B is 4.5 out of 5. Guess which one is going to be your landing page headline? Problem B, obviously. Another thing you can do to cross-check your data is instead of you manually going ahead and reading Quora and Wikipedia and all these sites where you can learn about your audiences, these are amazing, as Akiva pointed out, right? You can have people who, because it's just a question of literacy, right? So you can pay people in the Philippines who have great English, you can pay them $3 an hour, it's 3 times what they would make working locally, right? And they will summarize this data for you, and you can check, look, I haven't made mistakes with my interviews, I haven't made mistakes with my surveys, I'm really getting a best estimate as to what is going to convert for me before you actually pay lots of money in your traffic and your designer, and then you have to do it all over again just because you couldn't be bothered to be a little bit humble and start with more research and say, I don't really know everything about my audience in the first place. So you also can use Enter for campaign creation, and this is so much fun. Anybody who does white hat link building knows it's a pain in the butt because it takes so much time, right? You have to build relationships, you have to get to know your audience. And that's just very time consuming, especially if you're paying your agency staff, right? I don't know, let's say $30 an hour. That adds up really quickly. And a lot of time, it's again just basic literacy skills. So what you can do is something like the following, right? Create a task on Mentor, you can say, read these 10 blogs, 2 or 3 most recent posts, and summarize them for me. What you do after that is you offer genuine compliments, and you write an article, something along the lines of, top 10 bloggers in niche X that you're not reading, that should be. And what you've done is you've surprised people because as human beings, we just don't expect compliments. It's kind of sad. But we don't expect compliments. We expect people to talk about themselves. And when somebody talks about us, it feels amazing. And when they talk about us, and it's genuine, and they're genuinely complimenting us, that's remarkable. So now you've created link bait, and you're getting relationships, and we're not done. Right? So you just send these people to Blogger Heaven because you're giving them links and genuine compliments. But it gets better because what you do is you create another task. And you tell people, okay, please visit these sites, okay, and leave them value-added comments. So you have to define this very clearly, because otherwise there's people doing the task and saying, thanks, great post. But now you're actually sending them to Blogger 7 because you're giving them links. You're giving them genuine compliments. You're sending them traffic, and they're going to see all of this in their referral data, right? They're checking their Google Analytics too, they're checking their site meter or whatever. And on top of it, you're sending them comments that are value-added. So it's like, you just send them to Blogger 7 Heaven on an economy ticket. You can also use it for content generation. This is a crowdsourced photo, so fantastic for selling hats, right? Particular white hats, maybe not so good in Jerusalem. We've got about a third of the city in black hats, but still, right? And people, again, it's representative of the US population. They know so much. You can get reviews. You can, The stock broker affiliate industry, for people who don't know, has just people listing features and calling it reviews. I've done genuine reviews of stock brokerages.
You can make crazy money. You can collect contact information. You can collect contact information. This is amazing for outreach campaigns. You can do this with social media as well, right? A lot of social media, you have to build account history. Same thing with building the relationships. And SEO, this is tedious, it's time-consuming. So, in the first place, the problem is you have to have a lot of accounts, right? But supposing you can crowdsource the creation of these accounts, and all those mechanical terms will get thrown out.
But once you have, let's say, a couple of hundreds of accounts created, you just hire people to fill these accounts with history. So they're PMing people legitimately. And you're tasking something like, go use Reddit for 5 minutes today and tomorrow and the next few days, and do whatever you want. Vote for stuff, comment stuff, private message interesting members. And guess what? When you want to push something on Reddit 3 months down the line, you've got 200 accounts with legitimate account histories and IPs. You know, marketers are like whacking into the spam walls like idiots because we're all trying to create these accounts from one IP, from one geolocation. You've just crowdsourced your IPs and hopped over the spam walls like it was nobody's business. And on top of it, you did it without spamming them because this whole time you've been paying for people to contribute to these different platforms. You can see forum discussions. These people are representative of the US population. You know how much knowledge there is there, how much value you can add to forums. And again, you can collect contact information on Twitter, on StumbleUpon, whatever. And finally, this is probably one of the coolest things, I'm still learning about it myself, is that you can crowdsource your analysis. So the way you go about it is you export your data first, okay? Now unfortunately, a lot of our data has personally identifiable information. Big no-no nowadays, right? So Google's allowed to have it, but for us it's going to be not provided, and same thing for our crowdsourced data analyst. And especially anybody here doing e-commerce, you need to be careful because a lot of shopping carts, when you convert, the thank you page says something like, thank-you.html question mark user equals address, right? So if you're going to export this and share this with anonymous people you don't know, you better delete those email addresses and those names first before they are analyzing your traffic and your conversion data, right? But analysis really is just about pattern matching. It's like when we were little kids and putting the circle block in the circle hole and the square block in the square hole. So you're just doing that with data. And what you do is you pay like a generous amount relative to Mechanical Turk, right? So let's say $5 just for doing the task. But where you really put the payment is in the bonuses. And you say, I'm going to bonus for relationships between variables, right? So if you can find relationships between 2 variables, I'll pay you a basic amount. If you find 3 variables or more, right now you're segmenting your data. Anybody who's done a lot of analysis, web analytics stuff knows when you segment, you get great insights because you're not talking to everybody the same way. I'm talking to Amir one way, I'm talking to the ladies in one way, I'm talking to the mothers in a different way, etc. And especially you also want a bonus for explanations because it's nice to have segments, but if they're meaningless segments, you can't take action. So you can also say, I'm going to bonus you even more if you can give me an interesting insight as to why the data correlates in this way. And you can do this with so many things. You can do this with startups, you can do this with product, you can do it obviously with your link building campaigns, you can do it with your traffic, etc. And, you know, the sky's the limit with this. So, to conclude, you can crowdsource your whole campaign, okay? Mechanical Turk's FAQ actually says no marketing. If you read between the lines, actually say no spam, and the proof is that they themselves will say you can use it for content generation, which is obviously part of marketing. So you can use it to crowdsource your interviewees, right? You say we want to ask people, what's the greatest problem preventing you from achieving your goal? You can crowdsource the survey takers so you get the quantitative information to rank your problems. And you can crowdsource your relationships and your participation in social media. You can crowdsource the patterns that explain why all of this happened, because as all of you I'm sure know, money in marketing doesn't happen by luck. Sometimes, but you can't count on it. It happens by optimizing. It happens by looking at your data. Why did this happen? Why did this campaign work? Why didn't it work out? Okay? And how can we improve for next time? And again, you can crowdsource this, and you can get such broad insights, such broad knowledge, that it's a phenomenal ROI. And then, just an off-topic tip, you can play a lot with MS Paint and do interesting things that will make your ads on Facebook pop. So that's me playing around with it over there. And like I said, Internet Marketing Ninja has been around 15 years, 100 employees, a lot of big brands, which I can't legally talk about, but you probably use their sites. And I didn't say, but last year, if you saw my presentation, I've been working on making a better Jewish matchmaking service, still looking to find a partner or get whatever insights you might have to share. I'm doing that sort of in the evenings part-time. So if you have anything to talk about, please reach out, or for sales, contact internetmarketingninjas.com. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All the panels have to go off the stage because they have to break down the room for the big keynote. So everybody just share to the next part of the campus. The wall's going down, so.